Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that most of your money is gone. Your savings have disappeared, your investments are crashing, and nobody knows what will happen next. You run to the bank to get your money back. But you're not alone. Thousands of people are standing in line, all thinking the exact same thing. I need my money now. Factories are closing. People are losing their jobs. Families are struggling to buy food, and some are even losing their homes. But here's the crazy part. This isn't happening in a poor country. Just a few years earlier, America was experiencing one of the biggest economic booms in its history. People were buying cars, radios, refrigerators, and all kinds of new products. Factories were producing more than ever. Money seemed to be everywhere. People looked richer. They spent more. They borrowed more. And they started believing that the good times would never end. Then something even crazier happened. Ordinary Americans started buying stocks. Not just wealthy businessmen. Workers, shopkeepers, and even people with very little savings wanted to get rich from the stock market. And many weren't even using their own money. They borrowed money to buy stocks. As prices went up, they borrowed even more. Everyone thought they had discovered an easy way to become rich. But then, in 1929, something went terribly wrong. Stock prices began falling. People panicked. Everyone tried to sell at the same time, and the market collapsed. But the stock market crash was only the beginning. Banks would fail, millions would lose their jobs, families would go hungry, and America would enter one of the darkest economic periods in modern history. So how did America go from incredible wealth to the Great Depression? Let's go back to the beginning. To understand the Great Depression, we have to go back to the 1920s. After World War I, America entered a period of enormous economic growth. Factories expanded, new technologies appeared, and millions of people started buying products they had never owned before. One of the biggest changes was the automobile. Cars were becoming cheaper and easier to produce, and suddenly, owning a car wasn't just something for the rich. Ordinary American families could have one too. Henry Ford's Model T became a symbol of this new America. Mass production made cars cheaper, and every car created demand for something else. Steel, rubber, oil, gas stations, roads. Millions of jobs were connected to the automobile. The same thing was happening with household products. Refrigerators, radios, vacuum cleaners, washing machines. People wanted the newest technology because life seemed to be getting better every year. But there was a trick. Many people couldn't actually afford all these things. So banks offered something that sounded wonderful. Buy it now, pay for it later. Imagine wanting a new car but not having enough money. The bank lends you the rest. You get the car immediately. But you also get something else. Debt. At first, debt didn't look dangerous. People had jobs. Businesses were growing. So everyone assumed they could easily pay their debts later. But then something even more dangerous appeared. The stock market. During the 1920s, stocks became incredibly popular. People watched prices rise and thought, if I buy now, I'll make even more later. Think of a company as a giant pizza. The pizza is divided into millions of small pieces called shares. If the company becomes more valuable, those pieces can become more valuable too. But people weren't only using their own money. Someone might have $10 and borrowed 90 more. Now they could buy $100 of stocks. That made even small losses dangerous. At first, borrowing seemed brilliant. Stocks went up, investors made money, so they borrowed even more and bought even more stocks. Everyone thought they had discovered an easy way to get rich. When your money grows every day, you start believing it will never stop. That's how bubbles work. People stop asking what something is really worth. They only think about making more money. So people borrowed more and more and more. The economy looked strong, but underneath, it was becoming fragile, like a tall tower built on a tiny foundation. Almost everyone believed stock prices would keep rising. Being cautious seemed unnecessary. When everyone around you is making money, taking risks feels normal. But eventually, the party had to end. Stocks were expensive, debt was enormous, and businesses were producing more goods than people could afford to buy. The economic machine was becoming unstable. Imagine a tower made from toy blocks. You keep adding more until it becomes extremely tall. It looks impressive, But one small push can make the whole thing collapse. Then, in 1929, investors became nervous. Some started selling stocks. Others saw prices falling and became nervous too. Fear began spreading through the market. One person sold, then another. Soon, people weren't thinking about making money. They were thinking about escaping before everything disappeared. Suddenly, everyone wanted to sell. But there weren't enough buyers. Too many people were trying to escape at once. Stock prices began falling rapidly. The stock market crashed. Fortunes disappeared. People who thought they were rich suddenly discovered that much of their wealth existed only on paper. But this was just the beginning. Imagine checking your investment account and seeing most of your money disappear. If you borrowed money to invest, there's another problem. You still have to repay the debt. Banks and brokers demanded repayment. But millions of investors couldn't pay. The borrowing that made people rich during the boom now made their losses much worse. People sold stocks because they needed cash, but millions were doing the same thing. More selling pushed prices lower. Lower prices created even more fear. It became a downward spiral. Prices fell, people panicked, they sold, prices fell again, and the cycle continued. Eventually, fear reached the banks. People started asking, "What if my bank fails?" Suddenly, everyone wanted their savings back. Imagine hearing your bank might close tomorrow. You would probably run there today. Millions of Americans did exactly that. They wanted their money before it was too late. Huge crowds gathered outside banks. Everyone wanted cash. But banks didn't keep every customer's money inside their vaults. Much of it was lent to businesses and other customers. Normally, this works fine. But if everyone demands their money at once, the bank may not have enough cash. That's how a bank can fail. Here's a simple example. You give a bank $100. The bank lends part of it to someone buying a house. But if you suddenly want all $100 back today, there's a problem. Now imagine thousands of customers demanding their money at once. "Give me my money!" The bank can't satisfy everyone. And when confidence disappears, the bank can collapse. Bank failures spread across America. People lost their savings. Businesses lost access to credit. And confidence in the finance. Think of a row of dominoes. A bank falls, then a business. Workers lose their jobs. They stop spending. Stores lose customers and close. Factories began shutting down. Machines stopped. Production lines became silent. Workers suddenly had nowhere to work. Business owners had to lay off workers. People carried their belongings home in small boxes. For many families, losing a job meant losing their entire way of life. Families began cutting everything they could. Less food, less clothing, less spending. Parents sometimes went hungry so their children could eat. Soup kitchens became crowded. People stood in long lines just to receive a simple meal. For millions, free food became part of everyday life. Parents tried to protect their children from the crisis. A simple bowl of soup could become the family's most important meal. People had very little, but they still cared for one another. Some families couldn't afford their homes anymore. They built shelters from wood, metal, cardboard, and whatever they could find. Temporary communities appeared across America. Imagine losing the home you worked years to afford. You pack a few clothes, dishes, and family photographs. Then you leave, not knowing where you'll go next. These settlements became known as Hoovervilles. They became symbols of how badly America had fallen. People who once lived normal lives were now living in makeshift shelters. Farmers were suffering too. Agricultural prices had already fallen. Many farmers were deeply in debt. Then, severe drought made everything even worse. Farmers watched their fields disappear. They had invested years of work and money into their farms. Now, many couldn't earn enough to survive. Then came enormous dust storms. Huge clouds of dirt filled the sky. People had to hide inside their homes to escape them. Imagine looking outside and seeing the sky turn dark with dust. You can't see the road. You can barely breathe. This was the Dust Bowl. Farmers packed their belongings into old cars. They had lost crops, money, and sometimes their farms. So they left home searching for work. Families traveled west, hoping to find jobs. They didn't know exactly what waited for them. They only knew they couldn't stay where they were. In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt became president. America was exhausted. People wanted action. Roosevelt promised to do something. His programs became known as the New Deal. The goal was simple: help banks, create jobs, build infrastructure, restore confidence. Young Americans joined the Civilian Conservation Corps. They planted trees, protected forests, and worked on conservation projects. Most importantly, they received jobs and paychecks. The WPA created millions of jobs. Workers built bridges, roads, schools, libraries, and public buildings. Instead of sitting at home, people were rebuilding America. When workers earned money, they could spend it. Businesses gained customers. Those businesses could then pay their workers. The economic machine slowly began moving again. The government also built major infrastructure projects. The Tennessee Valley Authority built dams and brought electricity to rural communities. America was being modernized. For some rural families, electricity was completely new. A simple light bulb could transform everyday life. It brought light, appliances, and new opportunities. The government also created the FDIC. It protected people's bank deposits. This helped ordinary Americans feel safer keeping their money in banks. Trust slowly returned. The government created the SEC to oversee the stock market. The goal was to make financial markets safer and more transparent. America had learned a painful lesson about speculation. Social Security created another safety net. Older Americans could receive financial support during retirement. The government was taking a larger role in protecting citizens. Then World War II changed the economy. American factories received huge orders for military equipment. Planes, tanks, ships, weapons. Factories were working around the clock. Millions of Americans found work again. Factories needed workers. Workers earned money. Businesses produced more. The American economy became incredibly powerful. So the Great Depression wasn't caused by one thing. It was a chain reaction. Borrowing, speculation, the market crash, bank failures, unemployment, fear. Each problem made the next one worse. And that's the biggest lesson. An economy can look incredibly strong while serious problems hide underneath. If people borrow too much and believe prices can only rise, the whole system can become fragile. The Great Depression shows how quickly confidence can disappear and how difficult it can be to rebuild it. History doesn't repeat itself perfectly, but people can repeat the same mistakes. If you enjoyed this simple explanation of history and economics, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more simple explanations of history, money, and economics. See you in the next video.